Unfortunately, it's the richest continent underground, yet on the surface, it's the poorest. It's a continent rich in minerals. And I'm sure you know that in order for us to have a telephone, we need a mineral which is only in the whole world in DRC. Without that, we would never have a cell phone. But despite those riches, Africa remains poor. And it's not poor because we do not have resources. We are the richest continent. As I said, we are the richest underground, but unfortunately the poorest above the ground. And that is the whole thing that we are challenging as Africans rising. And that's the whole thing that we are calling that we would like to have the Africa that we want. The Africa that we want to bequeath to our children. An Africa where they can actually feel, yes, it's good that I'm an African.
Yeah.
And I can be in control of my own destiny. I can have what I want to have. And I can take advantage of the resources that God has bestowed on this continent.
So Africa, from what you're saying, is blessed. But the blessings are being exploited and enjoyed by others. Why is that?
Largely speaking, I said that Africa is gifted by God, but plundered by some of our governments and also plundered by transnational corporations. Africa is right now facing, for lack of a better word, I call hemorrhage, the bleeding because of illicit financial flows. Billions and billions of money leave this continent, and they actually stored up in the northern vaults or western vaults. And that is money that is would have been able to take our children to school, to be able to do job creation in this continent, all that. So we are actually talking about that the illicit financial flows that are causing the bleeding of Africans needs to end.
Yeah.
And what also needs to end is the people that are now going out of Africa. Previously, we as Africans were taken by force, to do slave trade. Now you see young people going willing, without anybody forcing them to cross the Mediterranean Sea, putting their life at stake. Now to go and be imprisoned in northern capitals and in western capitals.
Yeah.
And that is what we are actually challenging, that you can make a living here, you can have a life of dignity back home. Yeah.
All right. So you appear to be wanting to steer Africans to a certain direction. But do you think Africans and Africa as a whole is suffering from an identity crisis?
I wouldn't think that Africa is suffering from an identity crisis. I know that one of the things that Africa is witnessing now and facing now is the issue of wanting to be like them. And the word that them here is those who colonized us. If you go in the Francophones, they want to behave like life is in Paris. If you go, whether it's in Kenya or Uganda or whatever that were colonized by the British, they would behave like the British. And so there is a little bit of an identity issue there. But in terms of identity crisis, I wouldn't describe it as an identity crisis.
Because this is what some people ask. For example, you look at Nigeria, in terms of their music, in terms of their attire, they have something, no matter where you are, you'll quickly identify it as Nigerian.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Kenya.
Yeah.
There's not really that, music, sound that you can say is Kenyan or dressing. Yeah. So in terms of identity, even within countries, so as even away now from a continent as a whole, there is a little bit of a disconnect, isn't there?
Yeah, you are right on that. I think the late Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, as a Pan-Africanist, one felt that one important part of an identity of any people is language. And one of the things that identifies Kenyans is the fact that whether you are coming from eastern part of Kenya, western part of Kenya, irrespective of where you're coming from, you speak the same language. But you go in other countries and people speak different languages. You go to Tanzania, you don't even ask a person whether you're a Maasai or you're a whatever tribe. They speak the same language. Now, in many countries, the language that we inherited from the colonialists has become our official language, and that has led to a loss of identity.
All right. And talking about what we're engaging our viewers with on today on our Twitter poll question about whether the dream of a united Africa, is achievable. I remember the late Muammar Gaddafi was a huge proponent of this. He kept talking about the United States of Africa. So talking about these disparities we're already witnessing, do you see that? Are you talking about Africans rising? Will Africans rise to the extent of being a united front?
One of the things that we're really fighting for, and which is our dream as Africans rising, is unity and integration. I'm sure people like Kwame Nkrumah and Muammar Gaddafi, they must be turning up in their graves when they see the disintegration that's happening. A couple of years ago, we all celebrated the birth of the 54th state, Southern Sudan.
Yes.
But right now, we can almost say that was a huge, perhaps, problem because of what started happening there. So as Africans Rising, we are not talking about increasing in number of countries, or let's have the 55th or 57 or 66 countries. We are talking about a united, one people, one continent.
Yeah. And when you're talking about the new Pan-Africanism movement, how do you reconcile that with the Africans Rising? Is there a way you can find a thread that connects so that we don't have almost too many things happening and no common ground?
Right now, the new Pan-African ideology or identity is first up with an increasing global identity. And now many people would rather prefer to be global citizens rather than African citizens. But truth be told that, you are first of all an African before you're anything else. And, we need to take pride in the fact that, we are Africans. And that is the whole spirit of Pan-Africanism. In the fact that actually we need to be in charge of our identity. We need to be united. And we always joke that if the whole of Europe has the euro, maybe Africa should have an afro. Not talking about the hair, but talking of the currency. So, I mean, in terms of that, what really unites us, not to have a Ugandan shilling, a Kenyan shilling, a Tanzanian shilling.
Even in East Africa alone, it has been difficult to get a currency that is common.
Even, let alone movement. I mean, as soon as you reach the border, you have to get out your, a travel document that allows you to travel from one country to another. So we're looking for a time when, as Africans, we can actually be able to move from one country to another without the onerous visa restrictions.
So then would you say the African Union has failed? Because when you had the OAU, it was about getting out of, colonialism into independence. All the countries are independent now. But the AU we have, many would argue they're not feeling it pull us together to remove some of these barriers and restrictions you're talking about. I
mean, the AU has really done quite a great piece of work, and we need to commend them for what they have done. But I think one deficit of the African Union that it's not a citizen organization. It is a citizen, a group of our leaders. It's an organization of our leaders. And so when you're talking of the African Union, you don't get the feeling that has the DNA of a citizen, that actually as a citizen, whether I'm a Malawian, I'm a Zambian, I'm South African, have got my way of having ideas permeate through to the Union. I mean, it is a club, so to say, of 54 leaders that gather annually, and then they wait for another annual event. So it's an annual pilgrimage to Addis Ababa, and without necessarily permeating through the citizens, you don't get the feeling of this is a citizen organization. And that's how Africans Rising comes in. We feel very strongly that if we are going to be able to sort of take advantage of the dividends, take advantage of the good work that the AU has done, especially the technical team in Addis Ababa. I think they do tremendously very good work, pass very good policies, and they will never be implemented in their respective countries because we have problems in terms of legislating nationally to be able to breathe life into these policies. And where Africans Rising is coming in, we say, look, we would like a citizen all-inclusive movement that can actually be able to challenge even policy issues that are happening at the African Union. And that is only possible if citizens actually come up and are united in a movement.
So if people want to get involved with Africans Rising, how do they do that?
If you would like to get involved in Africans Rising, one, it is everybody can actually get involved. It's an all-inclusive movement. We're actually saying that you sign up on the Kilimanjaro Declaration. The Kilimanjaro Declaration is the founding charter of Africans Rising. And we're using Kilimanjaro in a symbolic manner. We are saying if Africans have to rise to the peak, then, Kilimanjaro being the highest peak, in the whole of Africa, that's where we're actually wanting to take Africans. Just get in touch, sign up on the Kilimanjaro Declaration.
Where is it, online?
It's online at www.africans-rising.org.
Okay.
And while you're there, then the conversation starts. And we're able to connect up with your local struggles. What we're actually saying as Africans, we need to be the first when there is a crisis. The Human Rights Watch does very good work. A number of international organizations are doing very good work. But the Africanism, the Ubuntu that we want as Africans, if there is a problem in one country, let us be the first one to be there. Let us be the first one to be there.
To be there. And you talk about being there, and I was remembering, what was happening in Burundi and the crisis there a while back, and some of it is still unfolding. You find that the leadership was playing very safe in terms of politics. They're not, it was very clear what the issues were, but the politicians were treading, walking on eggshells, sort of, and not really coming out strongly to be clear about what the law says and what it doesn't say. So at the end of the day, if you're going to be there, we're going to be there to play and be politically correct, right? We're going to be there for the sake of the people.
We're going to take sides with the people. We do not want to do anything for political correctness. And we know that, the greatest problem that we do have with many of our leaders is to read and interpret the Constitution the way they actually want it to. And so that happens. When there was a crisis in the Gambia, Africans Rising organized a mission to the Gambia, and we wanted to speak truth to the power. We wanted to speak truth to Yahya Jammeh and tell him, please listen to the will of the people. And thank God that with the support of ECOWAS and other bodies, he was able to see truth, and then actually he left. And right now there's been an issue in Cameroon where the Francophone and the Anglophones are up at arms. And we said we needed to make a solidarity mission to Cameroon, and we did that as Africans Rising. So we're talking of just not being there for political correctness, but actually identifying ourselves as part of the struggle, making these solidarity missions. And there are so many. Africa is actually filled with hotspots, and we get continued these calls as Africans Rising. We've been called to go to DRC, to go to attend to the Lake Chad Basin crisis and other crises that happen. And that's what we would like to pray.
And as Africans Rising, are you looking at this electioneering period here in Kenya? And if so, what do you make of it? Because there are people who are concerned about some of the sentiments, pronouncements being made out there.
I think really, the fears are always there, when a country is going through its electoral cycle. But I mean, listening to the president of this country, listening to the opposition, I think they've been clear on calling on people that we need to exercise caution. We need to exercise peace. And I've heard times more than number the president of this country, the opposition leader in the principals in this country, saying that what, Kenya is bigger than us. And I think for me and also for Africans Rising, we're saying that the country or the countries in which we come from at the continent is bigger than our own electoral interests.
Yes. And finally, are we telling our story more? One of the biggest questions and issues for a long time has been that the African story is told largely by outsiders, and that Africans never get to really talk about what it is they're going through, they're experiencing, they're seeing, and they know of being from Mother Africa. Do you think we're doing a better job on that?
No, we're not doing a very good job in terms of telling our stories. And this is one of the things that we've actually set out as Africans Rising, that the African story should be told by the Africans. And not somebody to come to interview me as an African and then write my story. There are people with very good stories, and they may be activists, they may be people that are involved in local struggles.